Okay, well, I hope you guys are ready for this jelly, because I'm not sure if I am. I don't think I've had anything this beastly under my loving and slightly questionable care before. So without further ado, let's grab a pen, a paper, because there's more ground to cover than the US leaving Afghanistan. Yeah. This bad boy can fit so many electronics in it. Why do I do this to myself? If you hadn't noticed, I'm in the kitchen currently because, yeah, space. Let's plug it in, see if it explodes, shall we? That seems like a good idea. Still need this. Look how tiny this is. This shit was working before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my notebook and I'm going to go through each section and note down if it works or not. I don't even know where to begin, honestly. So yeah, this is gonna be my life now. Let's start over here. The master oscillator, that little green strip in the back there. Now that is our master oscillator and the dividers. And that generates all the notes of all the octaves at the same time. Each individually generated note goes to two parts. This first row of small boards here. That's actually for the strings, the brass, the piano and clavinet. So that's more of a sawtooth sound. And that generates basically various decays and envelopes for those sounds, specifically for the piano and clavinet, since those are decaying sounds. There's one final board at the end there, next to the green tape. That's where it all goes. It has a bunch of wires attached, which are shielded wires, which finally go to all the boards here, which are filters, modulators, and you name it, to further shape the sounds of the strings, brass, and piano and clavinet. Now for the organ, or rather how it's called by Elka, the flutes, that's that whole section over there. And actually, sorry, I'm allergic for complexity. Those same notes that are coming from the master oscillator board also go to this section. And basically what this does, this generates the various footages. So 16 foot, 8 foot, what was it, 5 1/4 foot or something, 4 foot, 2 foot, 1 foot. All the footages of an organ. Basically the specific notes are grouped together and mixed together with each other. Then we get this amount of outputs, one for each drawbar. Now the output of that whole section, like I said, goes to somewhere over here, which is the drawbars. So there's some further filtering and mixing going on, and specifically the mixing in the drawbars, because yeah, you want to set the various sliders for that. Now finally, of course, we also have the chords keyboard, and we have this little row of boards This is basically the smallest section of this entire thing, I think. And since the chords only use 1 octave, we only have 12 boards here, one for each note of the octave. Again, we have envelope shaping, we have some basic filtering going on here, depending on which preset you set. This also goes to the drawbars, specifically the ones here for the chords, which are a little bit simpler, and those also go to some of these boards over here for further filtering and mixing. Then of course there's the drums and accompaniment, and the solo synth and the bass synth. Those are kind of their own thing. They're not really connected to any of the other sound generation and filtering circuitry, because they're entirely separate. The only real connections is of course their audio outputs and the triggers from the keyboards. Okay, let's take a look at the service manual. It has several photos with indications of where everything is, which is incredibly useful. And it's so much, there's 3 pages of it. And there's a block diagram. Now, since I want to tackle the outputs first, which are over here, I can see I need to look at the sheets 23, and I also want to check these outputs, which are also on sheet 23. So this is kind of the output section, and also the pedal control and everything. So I want to start there, check those circuits, and then kind of work my way backwards through the synth until I find something that's broken. Now let's scroll to sheet 23, which might take a while. And here we are, here we have sheet 23. So this is the circuit diagrams for the output section. We have 2 circuits here for the swell pedal control, but these circuits are bypassed with these 3 switches here. Interesting. So it might actually be the present strings go through the swell control regardless, and that's why they're not working. Is that the case? Yeah, I think it is, because that goes through this circuit. Makes a sound. Come back here, you. But there is a hanging note somewhere. I'm gonna... Oh, it might actually be this. Okay. Right. So yeah, that was... Apparently the strings and brass and everything is just always routed through the swell pedal, regardless, which is kind of annoying. I'm very glad I got that pedal, because otherwise that would have screwed me over big time. But a lot of the sounds aren't working. So, and since we have a hanging note and everything sounds kind of weird, I don't think it's the output section, because we do have sound. So I was looking at my tablet on the service manual, and I glanced down and I spotted this. Look at this. Does that look broken to you? Because it sure as hell looks broken to me. So I'm gonna guess these contacts don't quite work properly anymore. Yo, time to check all these contacts. Yeah, this thing has a number on there, every PCB does. And I can check in the service manual what the circuit is and what all the parts are. Lots of trimmers too. So I hadn't vacuumed it yet because I wanted to find those missing plastic bits for the keyboard, but yeah, some spiders have taken residence. and died a brave death trying to live in this thing. So I think I'm gonna clean it up a little before I continue. Looky what we have here. Spring contacts. And these definitely need some cleaning. So that's gonna be a bit of a job. And you can see all the diode matrices too. For the, this is the treble keyboard, by the way. So yeah. Those are definitely gonna need to do some cleaning. You can actually access those. As for the chords keyboards, that thing is super complex. It's a whole mechanical system, so it's gonna be a separate thing. I'm just going past all these spring contacts, at least the ones that I can access. It's pretty impossible to access the other ones in the back. I found the contacts for the chords keyboard. There they are, see? Look at all this. This is something. And it just extends in the bottom here too. You see that? So back at the kitchen table, and I moved the chords keyboard. Because I had a few broken keys. And I want to take a closer look at the spring contacts. Also, all these keys are not working, because these are. I noticed that all these keys are connected to the second board over here. Some checking on the schematics, and it turns out the keyboard is basically split in the first 3 rows being for chords and the other 3 rows being for the bass, and the bass isn't working, so that checks out. Oh shit, wasn't working like the chords. We have a loose wire somewhere or something. And here's our culprit. This is, I'm gonna assume, the minus 27 volts that is supposed to trigger the notes. And it was, that's loose. It was still touching the contact, but only, there was pressure applied on the physical wire itself. So, yeah. Okay, now some of these kind of hang. that's working. Except that the audio doesn't actually go through the spring reverb, so might be either the preamp or something else that's broken. Okay, so testing it out with the brass, because I saw the brass went to the reverb. Let's try. I'll turn the reverb on. Okay, so that works, but organ. But not the strings. Now I don't know if that's a feature or a bug. Well, look through the schematics again, and it seems that the strings just don't really go through the reverb. What a weird design choice. The solo and the brass and all the organ presets, which are called flute, but okay. Whatever. They all go through the spring reverb, but like the one thing that I want to go through the spring reverb the most really doesn't go through it. Okay, tackling the bass. Okay, connected my oscilloscope to transistor T1, which is the output transistor of the oscillator, basically. And T1 buffers the signal. Now, I also measured the minus 11 volt rail on this big resistor, and it says minus 7 volts. Or to be precise, minus 7.25.3, and as you can see, the amplitude and the lowest voltage is minus 7.3. So that checks out. Of course, it needs to be 11 volts, not 7, but at least we have an oscillator signal. If I press any of the keys, the signal will change. See, frequency changed. So that all works. So it's probably an issue with later on in the envelope or somewhere. Okay, I've been very busy removing components one by one. Started with lifting this resistor, which connects T2 to the trigger output or gate output, whatever it is, of this chip, the AY11313. That didn't make any difference. That pin was stuck to 3.5 volts. I also measured the 11 volts, the minus 11 volts rail, which is derived from the minus 27 volt rail. It goes to this big 2-watt resistor, through a capacitor, and through a Zener diode. You can already see I made some botches. Removed the capacitor in case it was faulty. Of course, I removed the chips just in case, also to protect them. I kept getting minus 7 volts until I lifted this Zener diode and bypassed it with a 10 volt Zener. Not 11 volts, but I only had 10 volt ones, and I suddenly have 10 volts. So that is interesting. The code on this Zener says 116, so that would be 11.6 volts, I guess. So yeah, I'm gonna permanently replace this Zener, and yeah, I'm gonna test if things work a little bit better now that if voltage rail is proper, because it could be that it's screwed with the chip. Okay then, so I put the bass synth card back in there with the replaced Zener diode, and well, not all the buttons work, but the bass works. this is what this corner of the living room looks like now. It's a temporary workshop because I literally have no space anywhere else. So yeah, and yes, that's indeed a lamp that I just put on there because I can. Anyways, there's lots of loose wires here. Hello. I feel like a NASA engineer inside this thing. I'm surrounded by electronics. It smells like the 70s.